Today's lesson is on preparedness, and this is going to be a very quick lesson. A lot of it is common sense. But earthquake preparedness just means that you know an earthquake is going to happen. So what are you going to do to increase your chance of survival and minimize the destruction? So say you live in California or Japan, you know an earthquake's going to happen. What can you do to increase your chances of surviving? So that's mainly what we're going to be talking about. Before we do that, though, we're going to recap where the most destructive earthquakes were, and then talk about the death causes. Then we know what to prepare for because we know what causes the deaths. So first of all, we kind of remember where the most deadly earthquakes were. Mainly, they're in China and the Middle East are the most deadly earthquakes. Well, why? One of the main things is population density. Okay, it's not just that there's a high population, it's that they have a very dense population. What that means is that people live very close together. Now, why that's important is things like if a building goes down and there's a lot of people in it, the high population density hurts them. One of the big things is disease. People living really close together, disease spreads very quickly. Very dense populations tend to have narrow streets, especially in, I said, China and the Middle East. So the streets are narrow, fires can erupt quickly and spread quickly. Fire trucks and things can't get to them because of the narrow roads. Ground makeup in China and the Middle East, the soil is very loose. A lot of sand, loose sand in the Middle East, and in China, it's a loose silt. Something you might have learned last year. I can never pronounce it very well. It's loose, German word spelled Loess. But it's a fine wind-blown silt. It's why the Yellow River is yellow in China. Anyways, they have very thick layers of this, and they have their buildings built on top of it, and it leads to very unstable buildings. Um, Dwellings and other structures, lots of times in these areas, the buildings aren't built as well as they are in maybe Japan or in the United States. So the buildings aren't built as well, so it leads to larger death totals. A lot of times they don't have the strict building codes. We really saw that in Haiti. Now, Haiti doesn't fit in the China or Middle East, but we really saw that in Haiti with the very poor building codes, and then even the building codes that they had, the people didn't follow. That's why one of the death totals was so huge in that recent Haiti earthquake. And then the last thing there, poor assistance, means they don't have enough firemen, enough doctors, enough hospitals to treat everybody. Um, Usually it's a more poor area, and they don't have the people to help. Okay, death and injury causes. A lot of these are fairly obvious since you've already learned about your hazards. We have things like being crushed, burning from fire, drowning from the tsunamis or sikes, asphyxiation from being buried alive, or gas leaks. Disease is really one of the big ones. If they would take the death totals, a lot of these earthquakes up to a year after, we would find that the death totals increase a huge amount because of disease. When the earthquake happens, lots of times, like I said, the sewage breaks, there's not clean conditions, people can't wash their hands, maybe they're living together in tents or in gymnasiums, and disease can spread very quickly. A lot of the hospitals are destroyed, there's not enough doctors, so not enough people to treat them. So that can happen a lot too. And electrocution, I just put that one on there. It is not a major injury cause at all, but it's one that does happen in the United States. And you just need to be aware of it. During an earthquake, there could be down power lines, and you want to stay away from them. Don't drive over down power lines. Don't touch the down power lines. Also, if your electricity goes off in your house and maybe your hot water heater is tipped over and there's lots of water in your house or in your basement, don't be messing with the electric box, the circuit breaker, to try to get the power back on if you're standing in lots of water. So electrocution can happen. Again, not a big one, but I just want you to be aware of it because that's one that it does happen in the United States. You want to stay away from those power lines especially. Okay, so now let's talk about earthquake survival. So let's say that not living in an earthquake-prone area is not an option. Okay, you're going to live in California because you have a job there, something like that. So if you do have to live where it happens, some tips. Build your house on solid ground. Make sure it's not the lesser of the landfill. We'll talk about that and we'll see that. Um, the solid foundation is key to having your building stand. Build a wood or steel framed house for the flexibility. Yes, wood houses can burn in a fire, but at least you have survived the initial earthquake. But wood and steel are very flexible, so they survive well during earthquakes. Brick or cinder block houses do not survive nearly as well. If you're living in an apartment, do not live on the first floor. Lots of times the first floor just pancakes, so it just squishes down because of inertia. We talked about the waves before. The love waves, they rip that foundation and first floor off of the building, and the rest of the building can drop down. We saw pictures of that in San Francisco. And if you can avoid it, do not live in a mobile home. Um, Never a good idea if you can avoid it. Lots of times they will shift or they'll fall. The gas lines break. They can fill with gas. They can explode. Also, kind of sliding down cliffs, especially in things places like California. You don't want to live in a mobile home if you don't have to. Some house safety. We'll be talking more about this, and in your project you'll talk more about this. But there are a lot of simple things you can do. Things like using brackets to secure bookshelves to the walls. We'll see in a video they have flex brackets now that not just straight angle irons. They have a little bit of a flex to them so they can shake a little bit. Straps around chimneys. The chimneys are made of brick, which we said was not flexible. So lots of times the chimneys will topple over, the chimneys will fall. Not having big things over your headboard of your bed in case you're sleeping when the earthquake happens. Your hot water heater, having it strapped to the wall so it won't tip over. Very simple thing, securing your house to the foundation so it doesn't fall off again, those love waves. These little brackets, kind of like the hurricane brackets we talked about with the hurricane notes. You want to do things like that. They're also now starting to do flexible piping for different buildings. So when the earthquake happens, these pipes can flex and they won't break with water or gas lines. So they're really starting to do some good technology. We will be talking more about earthquake engineering. You're going to be researching earthquake engineering. They're showing a damper here. A little bit later, you'll be doing more engineering, so we're not talking about that right now. Okay, so earthquake safety. Before an earthquake, what are some things that you should do? Establish a meeting place for your family. A lot of you might have this in case of a fire. If there's a fire, get outside and meet at the big oak tree in the front of the yard, or meet at the mailbox. Something like that, because you want everybody to know. You don't want your parents running in to the burning house to save you when you're out in the backyard, okay, and they couldn't see you because they were in the front yard. Same kind of thing for an earthquake. You establish a safe meeting place, and then everybody can go there, and then they know if they need to go in and try to rescue. Make your house safe, like the previous slide. Make sure you know where your gas, water, and electric shutoffs are. It's very important that you know where they are. Also as important is knowing how to turn them off. So if you have a water shutoff or gas shutoff, it might be kind of a flowery handle, red or blue, kind of like this. Which way should you turn it to make sure it's off? Do you turn it clockwise or do you turn it counterclockwise? So which way is off? Off is clockwise. Okay, so clockwise is off. You might not have a kind of a round one like that. You might have the pipe going like this, and it's a bar or a lever type. So you could have that bar or lever going perpendicular to the pipe, or that bar or lever could be turned parallel to the pipe. Which one is off? It's this one here, the one that is perpendicular. Think of it like that bar is blocking the flow of gas. Okay, that's the off. So you want to make sure you know where those are, and then if an earthquake happens, you shut everything off. Make sure you know where the nearest police fire stations are, and also create an earthquake survival kit. Could be in a trunk, a backpack, something like that, depending on how much you have in it. Might depend on how big you have it. Some things that should go in it: fire extinguisher, water and food, clothes, shoes, first aid kit, radio, maybe pliers or a wrench to help you with shutting off your gas and water, blankets and towels, garbage bags, flashlights. Lots of things can go in them, and a lot of things have more than one use. Think of like a garbage bag. You could use it to maybe haul your clothes and stuff in if you have to evacuate. If the power is going to be off for a while, you can use it to put in all the stuff from your refrigerator, freezer to wrap it up so it doesn't um, get moldy and smelly. Maybe if your chimney's fallen over and poked holes in the roof, you can use your garbage bags to seal that up. Um, Maybe you're going to wear it as a poncho if it's raining as you go to try to get to the fire station or something. So a lot of these things have many, many uses. and there's good kind of utilitarian things to have, kind of like a duct tape. Maybe you should have duct tape on your list here too. Lots of uses for it. Okay, so during an earthquake, what should you do? Not a whole lot of things. So during an earthquake, take cover under a sturdy piece of furniture. The duck cover and hold idea. So a really heavy desk, a really heavy table, that's what you want to get under. Only head for the doorway in older houses. You might have heard that. During an earthquake, run to the door frame. Well, they changed the building code in the 1970s that made your doorway or the rest of your house just as strong as your doorway. They changed the distance between the studs and the walls, so your door frame is not um, any safer than the rest of your house. So don't go run there. There have been a lot of injuries and fairly minor earthquakes because people think they should run to the door frame, and they do, and then the door keeps on smacking them, and they get broken fingers and things like that. So just get under a heavy piece of furniture, sturdy piece of furniture. Don't run outside during the earthquake. Your chimney might be falling, glass is breaking from above. Get under something first, wait for the earthquake to be over, then go ahead and get outside in case there's an aftershock or fire or something like that. Okay, so after an earthquake, what are some things you can do? Check for injuries, assess the injuries, obviously. Turn off your gas and water. We talked about that a little bit. Don't use a phone unless if there's an emergency. There are not enough phone lines for every single person's phone. Do not expect emergency personnel to help you. I like that one. Okay, they will help you if they can, but they've been in an earthquake too. So you need to think that I need to rely on myself. I need to do everything I can do first, and then if they help you, great. Don't use matches or lighters, um, again because of the risk of fire. Don't use elevators, cables will be smacked. If you're in a moving car, stop. You don't know what the road's going to be like. Get out of damaged buildings because of aftershocks. Don't flush toilets until you check the pipes. You might be flushing your toilet into your house. Don't spread rumors like, they're not coming to help us, or they're running out of food and water, or everybody, that was at the high school was killed. Okay, don't spread rumors. It just leads to things like riots. And then the last one is do not loot or riot. Okay, don't be breaking in and say, hey, this is a good chance to get a TV, or just to go steal stuff. Um, Make sure that you're in the right always. Looting and rioting is always a bad idea. Okay. Earthquake engineering, we'll talk about a little bit later. Those are your basic ideas about earthquake safety and preparedness.